Hello there and welcome to my channel, Finn Does Chemistry. I'm Finn and it is September, which means that it is time for back to school. Or, if this is your first year at uni, it's time to prepare. I've been a chemistry student for two whole years now. And having been through a couple of years of that chemistry student life, I have some advice to give, specifically for people who are going to do chemistry at uni this year or who are interested in doing so in the future. So in this video, I'm going to talk about some things you can do in the month before you head off to do chemistry at uni. So to stop this video from literally just being a whole rant, I'm going to split my advice up into three main sections. First off, revision. The most important things you'll need to take forward from your A-levels or your IB or what do you do in America? AP exams? I think it's AP exams. Anyways, second is equipment. There are a couple of pieces of equipment that I think are useful to bring to uni that are very specific to a chemistry degree. And there's also some equipment that I recommend you don't buy, so tune in for that. And finally, research. I think that university recommended reading lists get a bit overwhelming, especially when it's full of entire textbooks. Like, where do you even start with that? So later in this video, I'm going to break down some of the key areas to really focus in on. So let's get into it. Okay, I know this one isn't going to be popular, so I'm going to get it out of the way first. Maths. If you're doing a chemistry degree, you definitely do need a good grasp of several different areas of mathematics. Fortunately, if you know your A-level maths, I'd say it doesn't actually get that much more difficult, apart from quantum mechanics. So if you can get to grips with your A-level maths syllabus, you should be pretty well set up to translate those concepts over into the world of chemistry. Now, there are definitely some areas of maths that are more useful than others in chemistry. So what I'm actually going to do right now is take a quick look at the AQA A-level syllabus for maths and point out which bits are going to be the most important for you to understand well. So this is just a screenshot from the AQA website and it's got an overview of the subject content on it. And if I'm thinking about a kind of order of priority for you to focus on in your revision, I would say the topics I end up using every single day in my degree are algebra and functions, trigonometry, and exponentials and logarithms. Things that I probably use once or twice a week or every couple of weeks would be coordinate geometry, differentiation and integration, data presentation and interpretation, and quantities and units in mechanics. Topics that don't show up very often but will come in useful at some point would include vectors, probability, statistical distributions, kinematics, and forces and Newton's laws. And the rest of what's on there is unlikely to really be of much help at all. Bear in mind, I'm not saying you have to re-memorize every single formula that you learned in these topics. What you really want is proficiency and fluency, especially in those three really priority, that was not three priority areas. You'll probably end up having a maths course, a basic maths course in your first year where you cover the sorts of concepts you're going to need later on in your chemistry degree, where you'll revise and expand on all of those mathematical concepts you've already come across. For instance, we basically relearned differentiation and integration again from scratch because it's often taught quite confusingly at A-level, I think. It's just a way of getting everyone up to scratch so you can all start from the same level of understanding. So really a lot of it, it's not essential that you revise it, but whatever you don't need to relearn from A-level will put you ahead. Next up, and this one is also kind of obvious, is anything you didn't understand in your chemistry course that you've already done. You'll probably end up recapping a lot of the chemistry that you've already come across, but in my experience, the recap will last about 10 minutes minutes of your first ever lecture in that topic, and then if you haven't got to grips with it by then, you will be lost for the rest of term. That's a bit pessimistic. That's a bit pessimistic, but you know what I'm trying to say. You'll be moving on to more advanced topics pretty damn quickly. So if there's anything you particularly struggled with at A-level, now's the time to try and get your head around it. And again, what matters here is not memorizing the bloody Harbour process. It's feeling like you actually understand those core concepts like atomic structure, bonding, reactivity, kinetics. University, in my experience, is much less of a memory test and much more of a test of your understanding, which in my opinion is a great thing. So yeah, I can't stress that enough. Spend your time and focus on concepts over facts. And lastly in this section, a much more specific piece of advice. This topic will help out a whole lot with not only your first year of your degree, but your entire career in chemistry. Make sure you can read and write skeletal or hexagon structures. Very, very, very quickly your lecturers will start to wean you off structures that look like this and start expecting you to understand structures that look like this. Even after just your first term, you will almost exclusively be dealing with structures that look like that. So if you're able to use this time before your course starts to really just get proficient with reading and writing these skeletal structures, that'll put you in a great place. And fluency is the name of the game here. They say you're fluent in a language when you stop having to translate everything back to English in your head. And it's the same here. If you are able to get to a place where you don't need to count implied hydrogens, where you can just read the structure at a glance, and just from that understand the geometry of it and understand the stereochemistry, and if that's a term you haven't come across, you will. If you get to that point, you will be well set for the rest of your chemistry career. I've actually been thinking about doing a video tutorial on these skeletal structures, on reading and writing them. If that is something that you would like to see, let me know by writing it down in the comments, and subscribe so that you don't miss it. Now, before I talk about what equipment you should buy, I'm going to talk about what equipment you absolutely should not buy. Lab PPE. Your lab coat, gloves, goggles, that kind of thing. Your university should be providing you that. If you are a glasses wearer, you can buy prescription lab goggles. Those probably won't be provided for you, but almost everyone I know who wears glasses just wears their lab goggles on top of their regular everyday glasses. It works perfectly fine. It works perfectly fine, and it's just a save. So prescription goggles are not a must buy. Secondly, check to see what else your university will provide you with. You're likely to get a kind of welcome package when you start your course that will include your personal lab PPE, personal protective equipment. Yes, that is such a good sentence. But it might also include other things. For instance, we got access to a digital copy of our first year textbook, which of course meant that we didn't need to buy it ourselves. So what equipment should you have? Well, obviously the basics of stationery, you know, pens, pencils. I've forgotten what stationery exists. Pens, pencils, rulers, rubbers, lined and squared paper, you know, the maths paper, some of that. And it's also worth having a maths kit with, you know, like a protractor, a set square, compass, these sorts of things. You won't need to use those as often, but you know, you might need to use that equipment in exams sometimes, so it's worth having. Oh, but if you take your notes digitally, ignore everything I've just said. Actually no, don't, because if you do paper exams, then you will need those things eventually, so it's worth getting them now. You will definitely also need a calculator. Most universities have a list of models that are approved for assessment purposes. Check that list before you buy a fancy schmancy graphing calculator that you won't actually be allowed to use in exams. Now, obviously calculators are expensive, but a lot of unis will do a kind of second-hand calculator scheme, Or some, I think, even have schemes where you can borrow a calculator for just the duration of your degree. So if that's a concern for you, it is definitely worth contacting your department about it. When it comes to textbooks, as I mentioned before, you often won't actually have to buy a physical copy of your textbook. You might get access to a digital one, but if you're like me and prefer to have a physical copy, check your university library. I was able to get my first year textbook from the library, and I was actually able to keep it for the entire year because there was no one like waiting in the reserved queue. I've got a mad broken nail, like it's actually, look at that, it's completely... Actually, no, you don't want to see that. Why would you want to see that? Carry on with the video. Ow. Okay, these next two items are super specific to a chemistry degree. One is a set of mods, also known as a molecular modelling kit. Let me show you mine. These are my mods, and you can do things with them like make molecules. Here's a molecule of water. Focus on this. This is what the makeup YouTubers do. Stop. Focus. Camera. Focus. I can't see if it's focused. Hopefully you saw that. I actually got mine as part of my university's like welcome package thing for chemistry students. That's why I say to check what you will get as part of yours. If you don't get a set of mods, I really recommend getting some for yourself, especially if you're someone that struggles with visualizing things in 3D. It's super helpful to actually be able to build a physical model and rotate it and look at it down different axes, because things like symmetry and molecular geometries will become very important topics. And the other thing is hexagonal paper. This is more for those of you who like to take really beautiful, gorgeous looking notes. I mean, I've survived without it, but I'm gonna show you what my notes look like, okay? This is my notes. These are my notes. But yeah, hexagonal paper will just help you to draw some of those structures really nicely and neatly, but it is a totally optional extra bit of equipment that definitely will not make or break your degree. Now, when it comes to research, I want you all to know that the best possible reading you can do before your degree starts is the revision that I talked about earlier in this video. If you've been given required reading, that's one thing, but recommended reading, it's much more important that you're already up to speed with the things that you're already supposed to know. That being said, I'm going to give you a couple of tips for what to research if you are interested in doing some further reading, but that's only part of what I mean by research. What I really wish I had looked into in much more detail before I started on my chemistry course was the structure of my course specifically at my university. You should be able to find on your university website a big ol' breakdown of the structure of your course, year by year, term by term, or semester by semester, module by module, and exam by exam. And I think it's a really great idea to familiarise yourself with that structure. Most importantly, when your pinch points are going to be. Obviously the exam season will be one, but there might be times where, for instance, you have 2 big pieces of coursework due on one weekend, and it's really great to know when those times will be in advance, because that means you can plan ahead. I'm not advocating procrastinating your coursework, I'm just saying that's what I did. I did much better at managing my time in second year, but obviously it's best to just have it down from the start. Also, it's great to research things. Research noun, research verb. It's good to research things like your accommodation. We'll wait for the ice cream van to settle. Actually, I want ice cream. I got a Mr. Bubble. So yeah, research things like your accommodation, societies, events, and you can start that now online, but also I really recommend making the most of your Freshers Week. The partying side of Freshers is great and fun if that's your scene, and it's fantastic for making friends, but also make sure you don't get so hungover that you can't go to that dance society trial session that you really wanted to go to, for instance. Plus, there's usually a bunch of freebies, which is pretty nice. Anyways, if you do want to do some extra reading in preparation for your chemistry degree, I would really recommend browsing your university's recommended reading list. Most unis will have one for each subject, and in chemistry you'll probably notice that it's broadly split into organic, inorganic, and physical chemistry, with maybe also some biochemistry, analytical chemistry, and medicinal chemistry. It is, of course, okay for you to have a preference. Great even if you have a preference for an area of chemistry that you really enjoy learning about. But I would recommend at this stage trying to cover your bases a little bit in all of the areas. So don't just pick out books from one section of that recommended reading list. Also, a lot of those books will be slightly older textbooks which have several editions come out so that they're still up to date, but they won't be talking about the most cutting edge chemistry. So I think a really great thing to do is look at some really recent research, and a fantastic place to start would be looking at recent Nobel Prize winners, not just in chemistry but also in physics and physiology and medicine, I think is the other category. Yeah, physiology and medicine. And obviously, as research goes, that's some of the research that's going to lead to the most changes in the industry and is going to lead to new and bigger innovations. So it's a really cool thing to be up to date with that sort of thing. So I think that is all of the advice I have to give. Hopefully this video has helped you to feel a bit more prepared about Jesus. What am I, a literature student? I'm kidding. I love literature students. It's just not for me. Hopefully this video has just helped you feel a little bit better about preparing for your chemistry degree. If you have any questions about any of the recommendations I made, or any questions about my personal experience of my first year doing my chemistry course, pop them in the comments below. And if you want to see other videos like this, then hit subscribe. Once term starts, I'm probably going to do a kind of day in the life video about being a chemistry student, or maybe being in labs, so if that's the kind of thing you'd like to see. So yeah, enjoy what's left of your summer holiday and see you in the next video.